Okay, I'm Renee Hobbs, and this is EDC 534. It's the spring semester of 2017. I'm here with the amazing students of EDC 534 Digital Authorship. And today it's the second class. It's called a Digital Authorship. And many of you have been having a successful experience with the Twitter. And so I'm sharing my screen now. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the blue screen with the Twitter tweets. Yeah, there you are. And how about a thumbs up if you had a successful experience actually contributing to the Twitter stream? Yeah, okay, all right, that's sort of a maybe. Dan's like, maybe. So I think of Twitter like a river, and that means that it's always flowing, and I can't pretend to keep up with it, but I dip into it every once in a while. And I use my favorite keywords like digital literacy, media literacy, digital citizenship, technology integration, media, culture, society. I use my favorite keywords. Propaganda is a big word for me these days. And I always learn something. So I am really thrilled that you have a Twitter. Almost all of you have had the great success of having a blog put up. You can see now I've turned my screen share to take a look at the class roster. These are the people who sent me a blog. Maybe some of you, James, Vanessa, Kristen, Dan Tucker, maybe you sent me a blog. And if you're new to this class, welcome. It's not even everybody's name is up. We have a couple of new additions to the class. But it's really worth your time to go check out and see everybody's blogs, because next week you're going to be posting your first assignment here on your own class blog. And that's really great to see that progress that you've made already. All right, well, let's not waste too much more time. I did want to say thank you for contributing to the Flipgrid. Some of you, like James Anthony, you're not here in person with us, but we're glad you're here, you're here asynchronously. And what I appreciated about these reflections was the chance to see the different kinds of creativity that you have experienced in the process of, arriving at life up until now. So in a way, this Flipgrid activity is kind of like a pre-writing to get your creative juices flowing about reflecting on your own experience with creative media products. I guess there's probably one more thing to say, and that's about your experience of using the Moot. And I think almost everybody figured out how to log into the Moot. I've been moving through the process of taking a look at your recollections as you've shared your memories of media making and cake making and video making and dance, and really reflecting on the way in which play was a big part of your experience as a creative person. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and in your thinking about the readings as well. So here's our first activity. I'm going to share my screen with you again. One of my students, you probably already know that my students are amazing. My students are amazing. It's just amazing how amazing my students are. And a couple semesters ago, one of them read the readings that you guys read for this week, and he came up with a video that he created as part of his Leap 2. You guys are also going to get to do a Leap 2. And what I thought we could do is watch his video and then see if we can make any connections to the readings that we read this week. So rather than watch this as a large group, at this point I'd like to ask you to put your microphones on mute and basically watch this video. It's 2 minutes and 32 seconds, all right? All right, why don't you give me a thumbs up if you are finished watching that short 2-minute video? Yeah, great. Okay, so let's just see if we can figure out what connections can we make between that video and, well, some of the course readings that you read last week. What connections can you make? Who wants to go first? What connections can you make between this video and some of the readings? Mary.
Yeah, I'll go. The fact that you can't force an idea. It has to come in its own time. It isn't something you just say, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to come up with this great creative plan. It's something that that comes through trial and error, and over again you attempt something, mess it up, tear it up, scribble all over it, put it back, walk away from it. You can't force it.
Nice, thanks for keeping it off. That's right, you can't force an idea, right? The creative process is full of leaps and starts and failures. What other connections can you make?
I have one. My connection was that I always equated equality with, or not, originality with creativity. But from the readings this week, it seems that that creativity is more a form of taking what we have learned and what we have gathered from other places and making it into something that's uniquely ours, not necessarily original, but original to us based on what we've learned.
Nice. So that's a really great that links directly to some of the readings and some of the videos that we watched last week. So Donna, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it turns out that maybe there are no new ideas under the sun, and it's in the synthesis, combining ideas that creativity springs forward. Cool, thanks for sharing. Any other connections that you can make between this short video produced by a EGC 534 student and some of the readings that you encountered this week?
Sure. I will.
Thanks, Dan.
So I think in that short video, I saw both incubation and flow. And so the clapping of the hands were to kind of set the stage for an altered state of consciousness. So that one was receptive to what the process was. And it reminded me of that book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. And the artist's way of seeing, you have to get into a particular mode that normally in a right brain world we're not used to doing. And then after a certain point, there's enough confidence and enough attention that flow will happen.
Wow, such a great point of view. And I get the feeling of the altered state of consciousness from the choice of him setting it in Asia and using that Indian music, right?
Yes.
Meditative, rhythmic, slightly blurring, not melody in the way Western people think of melody, but that rhythmic chant sensibility to communicate close altered state of consciousness. Yeah, glad that you recognize that. That's part of what the creativity writers are exploring. One more connection. Any connections between that crazy little video and we read about or heard about this week? All right. So let's try something else. Okay, so what I want to do is okay, so please microphone. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of feedback that we're getting. So what I'd like to do next is we've kind of got these authors, and each of them offers a little piece of a pretty complicated puzzle. What I'd like to do is break into a couple of small groups and have you just review some of these ideas so that you can explain them in your own words, right? So we're really practicing, seeing if we can take some of these authors' ideas and reinterpret them in our own words. And we're just going to take about 6 or 7 minutes in a small group experience. I'll ask the team to focus on just 2 of these authors because, you know, truthfully, you can't really talk about all 5 of these authors in 6 minutes, right? You won't get very deep. So why don't you just pick 1 or 2 of these authors and take some time to practice talking about their ideas in your own words. All right, give me a thumbs up if you understand the activity we're doing, this small group discussion. Thumbs up if you understand what we're doing. We're going to take about 7 minutes to do that. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, really just a couple of breakout rooms. You should be getting that notice right about now. So the rooms are opening. Take a minute, join the room, and we'll see you back in the main room in about 7 minutes. Okay, looks like people are mostly joining.
I didn't get anything on my screen.
You didn't get anything on your screen, Vanessa. Why is that? So you and I will be a group together. How's that?
Okay, great. That sounds good.
So, okay, so I'm just sharing my screen with you to put the authors. Which of these authors should we talk about? Which one? You pick one and I'll pick one. How's that?
I really like David Gauntlet and that chapter that he had. So it reminded me, and I talked about this last class, of a TED Talk I had watched in one of my courses last semester. The idea of digital literacy being engaging you, that it's not just about, I'll say, being a digital consumer, but actually in creating things. And I really got excited about the idea of the Web 2.0 because I don't think I've ever heard it described in those terms before. And this is a very new concept to me because I think I have always thought that being able to use the internet and get on the internet and explore the internet and use a computer and different media tools, that meant that you were engaging. And so the idea of creation as being sort of the next level is very exciting to me.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that idea is intriguing. It's really a fundamental aspect of this whole the whole course. You're right about that distinction that in the beginning, just using social media was just using it, just consuming it or participating it was considered like adequate. Right?
Right, exactly. Yep.
And now we're starting to realize, well, no, that's not setting the bar high enough, actually. Right? So it's sort of like to really discover the power of these literacy practices, you have to be a creator yourself. Yeah.
Right. I think
so I want to ask you about this one thing that David Gauntlet says, school and media are like sit back and be told. And I wonder, do you think schools can make the shift in taking that from that more passive receive orientation to a more creative making orientation?
Right. I think there's always going to be an element of the sit back and be told. I think that's very difficult to get away from, but I would love to see that. And I think it's so important for the way a lot of people learn. And I think it's important, especially for minority groups and LGBTQ teens, and the idea of being able to create things and express themselves and communicate and do that on a digital level. I feel like it could socially, it could just really change a lot of things for a lot of people to learn how to do that.
Very nice. So you're actually wondering about how it has an impact on your sense of identity.
Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you. Yeah. That's exactly it.
So I'm definitely writing down this idea. Gauntlet doesn't take us completely there in this chapter, right, but you see the connection between making and doing. And maybe I wonder if it relates to this question here, how is creativity political?
Yeah, definitely. Right? Yes. Yeah, there's a sort of activism to participating on a creation level. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really the case. And boy, I'll tell you, I went to the Women's March last weekend in Providence, and the creativity in the signs that people had.
Yes.
Oh my God, it was amazing. And I was like, this is cool. This kind of.
Yeah, I was in Washington, D.C. because my sister lives in Washington, D.C. And someone had a sign that said, "Make America Information Literate Again." And I lost it. I was so excited about it. It was it was beautiful. It was just, yes. And there were women who had these huge, giant signs, and they were like cutouts of women. I don't know. I forget who was on them. And then on the back, they would have like a little bio of them. But they were giant, and there were these stands of women that they had illustrated themselves. And
wow,
it was really incredible.
Actually, them. That was their political creativity.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Tori, what we're doing in this little small group conversation is we're seeing if we can put some of the ideas of some of the authors we encountered this week in our own words and make some of their ideas kind of relate to our own experiences. We've kind of already tackled David Gauntlet. Do you want to pick another one of these ideas and talk us through how you understand them?
Yeah, sure. And I apologize that my computer crashed. I had a mini panic attack.
But you recovered and you got back.
Yes, I'm back. So I'm looking at number 3 right now, why conflict, dissent, relationships, proximity, and space stimulate the production of new ideas. And when I was reading that, I was thinking about, I don't know if it's Buddhism, but I know it's some kind of like Asian religion where, you know, feng shui is like big and space really matters a lot and how they set up offices. And I was thinking back to my last semester class with, it was intercultural communication. And we talked a lot about space and proximity, and it's kind of cool to see reoccurring themes pop up in classes. And I just thought it was interesting how certain spaces can bring out creativity and also relationships. I knew groups come up with better ideas, but I didn't know the extent to how groups really affect the creative process. And I think that now it makes sense why school puts so many group projects into their curriculum.
Yeah. I loved that Jonah Lehrer article, in part because of the way he confirmed some things I thought were true, like you write about space and having your environment work for creativity. And he also disrupted some of my ideas, like the whole idea that conflict can be good for creativity. I did not think that was true. And I'm still not sure I agree with it, but I'm intrigued that conflict may promote creativity. Really powerful.
Along those lines, Mike, and I cannot pronounce his last name, but the TED Talk, when the area of flow, if you looked at the chart, it was at the top of challenge. And so to me, that's kind of a conflict, right? You're meeting a conflict, you're meeting a challenge. And so I see how that can inspire more creativity, because you have to get up there to meet those needs.
Right. So the bigger the challenge, actually, the more you have to stay focused, devote your attention to the task, the more the task demands your full attention.
Yeah. Sort of rising to the occasion, right?
Yeah.
I always thought that brainstorming was a very effective way of using your time. So at first I was like, okay. He stroked my ego. I was like, I'm right. He agrees. And then the article takes a turn and I'm like, brainstorming doesn't work. I use in my office all the time. We just had a new website and I sat everyone down. I said, everyone take 5 minutes, write down all your ideas. We'll share them. It worked for us, but his argument made sense. So I guess, it was interesting to learn that.
Yeah. I definitely can see how certain groups that stay together for long periods of time get into that thing he called groupthink, right? Where creativity lessons, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe because in academia, our groups last 12 weeks, right? So I don't have a stable group, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I found myself thinking a lot about my own creative process and how really social I am as a creator, and how almost everything I've ever made that's ever been any good has been a team effort. So it definitely dispelled that idea of the lone creator. Okay. So we've done a pretty good job, I think, on our small group breakout session. So, I got a chance to meet Mike. Here's how you pronounce his last name: Csikszentmihalyi. He's an amazing guy. Yeah. He's an amazing guy, although he's not a great public speaker.
Right.
I didn't think.
Yeah, I love when he brought out the chart, though. I was like, oh, this is clicking now. I can see it's the data visualization. And it clicked, and it made so much sense to me to see that.
He's a numbers guy, and his data visualization is what makes it work. And he's not a great public speaker, but man, and he writes really well. So that's the other thing is if you get a chance to read Flow, Flow is a great, great book. Okay, so we've kind of been introduced to some key ideas. Of course, the literature on creativity is voluminous, but I think probably now you know why we're starting with this. When we're talking about digital authorship, we have to start with creativity because we have to think a little bit about the idea, the power that comes from creating. In some ways, the experience that we've just had may create opportunities for us, to wonder. And you know, Julie Quiro, my colleague from the School of Education, she thinks a lot about the productivity of wondering. So why don't we now, during this phase of our collaboration, why don't we see if we can generate some questions on the topics that we've just discussed, and maybe questions that could be answered through a research process. So what I'd like you to do is click on the Google link, and here you are wondering, right? So we're generating some research questions on creativity, and we're just going to all take a little corner of the page and generate questions about creativity that we wonder about, questions that maybe actually could be answered. So carve out a little space and let's generate some questions. I'm going to ask you to take about three more minutes. Okay, just 1 more minute remaining. If you've done a brainstorming, why don't you read through the questions, and I'm going to ask you to bold one question that is most interesting to you from among the many questions that we generated. So go through the list and bold the question that's most interesting to you. And that could be your own, or it could be somebody else's.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
I can
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, Renee, your thing is muted. There you
Oh,
go.
sorry. Hey, is that you, James?
Yes, I couldn't enter into the Google Docs the whole time. I
Oh,
was trying.
no. So that just did not work for you, those Google Docs, huh?
Yeah. Was that
list
just
didn't work for you, huh?
email thing?
Ah, darn. All right, I'm sharing my screen. I'm inviting you, if you can, to bold a question that was most interesting to you. What an interesting group of questions we generated in just 3 minutes. Pretty amazing. So take a minute, read over the questions, and bold one that is most intriguing to you. Okay, looks like we've got quite a lot of interesting questions about creativity. Now, here's my wondering to you. Do any of these questions have anything to do with media, like digital media? So, this is a class in digital authorship. Do any of these questions have any particular connection to digital media and technology? Why or why not? What are your thoughts?
I noticed the one with about the socioeconomic background one. I think that could probably tie into the digital divide that we might see in certain areas. So I could see a tie-in there. I don't know if it would fully be digital, but I think there could be a relationship there.
Cool. Any other connections that you can see in this list of questions and this phenomenon of our digital media focus?
The first one that we have, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The one that says, can creativity can benefit our students, and which approach? So the approach can be like the digital aspects and how that can enhance the creativity of the students.
Good. Any other connections that you can see between these questions and the particular focus we have this semester on digital media?
The question
I have
about,
one.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tori.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Well, I was wondering about personality types and if one is more likely to be more creative than the other. And I can relate that to digital media. If someone is more likely to use social media or is more tech savvy with that, does that influence how creative they are?
I wonder. Nice. I wonder. So we're going to be thinking this this semester about the relationship between creativity and the form, the genre of digital media tools and technologies. And that's actually something that I think you're going to be thinking about for your Leap 3. All right, so now I only have about 20 minutes left, and I want to help you get a sense of what I'd like you to do for next week as we continue to tackle the questions of creativity and of critical analysis. First, let's talk a little bit about the writing assignment that's due next week, Leap 1. It's called Media Memoir. It's worth 100 points. And we'll just read aloud here. You've been critically analyzing print media, mass media, and popular culture, and creating messages using language and images since you were quite young. Reflect on your life experience with the critical and the creative, and then compose a short media memoir that takes us back to some vivid experience you had when you were younger. You can learn more about the genre of the memoir here. And this is a really nice little piece about how to write a memoir. I love the phrase, be yourself, speak freely, and think small, right? Think small. So a memoir, and this essay is a really beautiful essay on what are the characteristics that make a memoir powerful. What I'd like you to do is make at least one reference to some of the ideas you've encountered in the course reading so far. Embed at least one image and one hyperlink in your writing. Remember, storytelling is at the heart of a powerful memoir. Post your memoir to your blog and tweet a link using the EDC 534 hashtag. So I'm looking for 3 basic criteria for, for an exemplary work. The writing tone should be authentic and personal. And you should use rich descriptive writing and compelling narrative to capture the sights, sounds, and feelings of some aspect of your experience with critically analyzing and creating media. Number 2, the media memoir has a thesis statement that addresses your life experience with the critical and the creative. The memoir helps us get to know you as a human being and learn how your life experiences with analyzing and creating media have shaped your thinking. You should use at least one idea from the work of authors we have encountered in the course so far. This week we're going to be reading from 2 authors who think a lot about the relationship between the critical and the creative. So those authors might help you. And then finally, the media memoir attracts and holds the reader's attention and is well organized with no spelling, grammar, or usage errors. You've embedded at least one image and one hyperlink in your work. You've posted your Leap 1 to the blog, and you've shared your work with the hashtag EDC 534. Just to give you another exemplar, here is a marvelous media memoir by Tracy Dan, a student in the previous class, where she talks about her mother's Christmas letters, right? And how her mother's Christmas letters inspired her thinking about the critical and the creative. All right, let's see what questions you have about Leap 1, which is due next Monday at 7 p.m. What questions do you have? Okay, thumbs up if you're feeling really comfortable about this assignment. And a thumbs like this if you're like, That's okay. This is a genre that might not be so familiar, right? Maybe memoir writing might be a little scary, but that's kind of the point, right?
I had a small question.
Please.
When you say permalink, I'm just trying to think, because obviously I haven't really overlooked the Leap 1 project and going through it, but when doing a permalink, how is that going to incorporate into the memoir itself? Is using that as some kind of reference point of where we're extracting from, or journal, whatever that's supplementing? Yeah.
Good question, James. What does it mean that you have to use one hyperlink in your work? And what is a hyperlink anyway, right? So a hyperlink is when a word is highlighted, usually in blue, and when you link from that word, you're taken to another site. Like, for instance, I created a hyperlink here. When you click on exemplar Tracy Dan, it takes me to her media memoir, about her Christmas letters and her family's writing of Christmas letters. So this is part of the creative challenge of this assignment, is that you have to figure out how to use a hyperlink. It might be to reference some additional information. It might be to link to a source. There's a million different ways you might use the hyperlink to make a connection. And that's part of the creative process, and there's no one right way to do it. But I'm glad that you're asking about it, James, because it shows that you understand that this assignment has some creative constraints. And that's one of them. So thanks for noticing. What other questions do you have? Okay, so I feel like you guys are more or less comfortable on the writing of leap 1. I just did want to show you where all of the leaps can be found. If you go to the main page and over here to the syllabus, leaps are here, and each leap has its own page, right? So I've hyperlinked the leaps from their main location up here under syllabus, right? So you can see that, right? There are the leaps, and each time the leaps will pile up there. All right, well, we're doing some amazing reading for this semester, and I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to be reading David Buckingham's classic work, Media Education, Literacy, Learning, and Contemporary Culture. David Buckingham's probably the leading media literacy scholar in the world, and the first couple of chapters here are really introducing us to thinking about the relationship between being critical and being creative. And that dialectic is a really important dimension of how media literacy conceptualizes the concept of literacy, right? After all, literacy is reading and writing, right? It's taking in information and composing. So the critical and the creative is the dialectic at the heart of thinking about an expanded conceptualization of literacy. He's writing from a British perspective, and so sometimes when you're reading, you're going to see he's going to be referencing things that have to do with the British schools systems. Don't worry about it, right? So just read for what you find useful and meaningful. He's also writing in 2003. That is before the rise of social media. So he's offering us almost a historical perspective on media education. The second book we're going to be reading is the classic work by Scott McCloud called Understanding Comics. This was written in 1993, and it's truly considered a classic in the field. It's a comic book about comics. Now, one thing that many of my students have told me before is that they don't know how to read a comic, because it's possible that you, if you're trained as a reader, you are just going to read this part, these parts right here, right? You know, the little black squiggles with the letters. But to read a comic, you actually have to read the pictures, right? So while you might think, oh, reading a comic book, that's a breeze, woo, 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 fly through it. Actually, you have to read the images, right? And that's going to slow you down, but in a really good way. Now, another thing my students often tell me is it's sometimes hard to figure out how do you move through it, right? Do you start here or go down, and how do you move through it? And all I can say is Scott McCloud will teach you how to read a comic if you read this book, right? So we're reading, I believe we're reading just a couple chapters. Let's take a look specifically, right? Okay, so please complete these activities before Monday, February 6th. As you read David Buckingham this week, compose at least 3 tweets to summarize and comment on key ideas from the reading and share them using the hashtag EDC534. Read the tweets of peers and like at least one. And then, as you read Scott McCloud, make one comment about the ideas you are encountering using the Padlet wall. Try to include both a brief summary and response to the ideas you encounter. Use an image or a hyperlink to accompany your work. So I got started a little bit by talking about McCloud's ideas about time and space. McCloud considers the relationship between comics and film animation, exploring how time and space are represented in each medium. For me, reading this book teaches me as much about the language of film as about the language of comics. And you can see I've added an image that relates to that idea, that McCloud isn't really writing just about comics. He's actually writing about audiovisual media as well, right? So one of the things, let's do me a favor, give me a thumbs up if you've used a Padlet before. Thumbs down if you've never used a Padlet, right? Thumbs down if you've never used a Padlet, thumbs up if you've used a Padlet. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little demonstration since it's not so obvious. So a Padlet is like a bulletin board, right? And you use this, it's like a little button over here on the far side, double click anywhere, drag files in, paste from clipboard, or click here to post. So I like to click here. I can type a title, I can type the text, and then I can add a photo, I can add an attachment, I can add a video, I can add a piece of microphone, right? So I can add a photo, right, from a file. It's a pretty simple tool. Well, do I want to delete this post? Yes, I do. I don't know why it's not letting me delete it, but there it did. So it's a pretty simple tool. This will give us a chance to really share some of the ideas that resonate about Scott McCloud. Now, you might be wondering, Renee, where did you get your image from? But you already know that there is a PDF copy of the Scott McCloud. It's online. I think it's an illegal download, but let's talk about it, okay? So I made fair use of that one little panel, one little frame, and I embedded it into my Padlet. I think I made transformative use of that copyrighted work. We'll talk about that a little bit more this semester later on. Okay, so let's see if you have any other questions. Week 2, these are the 2 activities that I'd like you to complete. And when we look at the actual readings, it looks like you're reading a big chunk of Buckingham, pages 1 through 69, so like the first few chapters. And then we're reading some different chunks in understanding comics. Setting the Record Straight is chapter 1. The Vocabulary of Comics is chapter 2. Show and Tell is chapter 6. And the 6 Steps is chapter 7. So we're reading 4 chapters in Scott McCloud, which absolutely should inspire your writing about your own experience with media. All right, so I'm gonna see what questions you have about the work that you're going to be doing this week.
I had another small question. I just kind of got a visual when we were doing the Google Docs, and it was really awesome to just kind of see everyone start going to town. And I just had a visual of actually doing that in classroom, with my future students. I was just wondering how, that was possible, I guess, with the Zoom meeting, or how you mirrored it, or I don't know how it happened, but I thought that was really cool to post it up on, and do that actually in class down the road. I thought that was really cool.
So give me a thumbs up if anybody else thought it was kind of cool the way we collaboratively wrote on that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. What made it cool? Why'd you like seeing the writing emerge like that?
Because when I was doing my observations through some of the past semesters, and it was really alarming when I was seeing fifth graders using Google Docs to collaborate with each other and, groups of 4 or 5. That was really mind-blowing. But this actually takes it a little bit more personal, like another level to it. And it just made it more personalized where we're all seeing each other. And it's almost immediately as we're writing, you kind of come down, you can look up, talk to somebody. And it's like a dual process between visual and actually the text part. It's kind of, I like that. It was definitely different.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to comment on that experience of collaborating on those that we really weren't collaborating, right? We were working independently on a common question. What made that cool? How might you use that technique in a classroom for another kind of learning purpose?
I think what James is talking about is the fact that we're all sitting in different locations and doing this at the same time. Is that kind of where you are with that, James?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was just, yeah. I don't know how to really, word it right in a sense, but it was just a different experience that just kind of struck me as opposed
to. You could actually take it and share that classroom to classroom. If you have multiple buildings in your school district, the kids don't have to be sitting in the same classroom to still work on it. And you could, project that. You could incorporate a Zoom meeting as easily, or even, Google Hangouts, whichever you wanted, and project it.
And the fact that you can actually record it and cut it and use for presentation purposes and kind of which way you want to slice it, and use that for demonstration purposes, and kind of, free up time and use that as kind of part of your portfolio for when teaching future classrooms.
I wonder if a Google Doc like that, how it supports the introverted student who
that's what I was thinking.
In a classroom might not feel so comfortable sharing their ideas out loud, but who does feel comfortable typing them out like that. I wonder about that.
The other thing is that it was also, okay, I am on.
Go ahead, Daniel.
It was also anonymous, so you just had a link and then everyone was anonymous. So for those introverted students, they don't actually have to say that was their idea, but they are still able to get their ideas out.
Yeah. And that could backfire some teenagers too, right? Who might use it to be transgressive and type crappy, mean things, right? All right. Well, Vanessa?
Because there were so many people going at once. I've never been a part of a Google Doc that there were so many people typing at once. There was a certain energy to it, I think, that made you want to go faster and come up with more. And then you're seeing keywords pop up and it's jogging things in your brain.
Yeah, what a great description of what the feeling felt like. And that speaks to that idea that Jonah Lear talked about creativity as kind of a group process, right? We were all brainstorming on a topic, and yet we generated a lot of different ideas. All right, so I think that we're done for tonight. Next week is going to be like a little bit mind-blowing, because we really will be offering the gifts of our own identities as storytellers. One thing I learned from memoirists is that memoirs aren't always completely and perfectly true, because the frailty and the fallibility of human memory. And so one great writer invited me, as I was trying to do some memoir writing, that if I couldn't exactly remember, like when my mom helped me with that Daughters of the American Revolution speech that I had to give in the 8th grade. Like, what did my mom actually say to me, and how did she model the creative process for me? And so the advice that was given to me by this very talented writer was that it was okay to kind of make up some parts of the story, even though I really was making it up, and I wasn't exactly sure if my mom actually said this, that, or the other, right? So use poetic license as you need to tell a story, a true story, about your experience with the critical and creative. And remember, a small story is always a powerful way to share some aspect of the complexity of, being you, alive, in the 21st century. Lucky you. All right, so we're signing off. Let me just get our big gallery up again. This week, in honor of all of the cool protests that are going on, we're signing off with the peace sign. So, ladies and gentlemen, give me the peace sign. Peace to you all, and we'll see you next Monday at 7 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Bye.